The most outdated idea is to go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, get out of debt, and invest for the long term in the stock market. Look, why would you save money when trillions of dollars are being printed? The gap between the 1% and the 99% is massive. You see, it's not just about money. You have to step back and look at the bigger picture. So, what do? In each of us, there is a poor person. There is still a poor person inside me. There's also a middle-class person, and the middle-class person wants security. They want that stable control. And there is a rich person. They are all inside of us, except that it is not taught. You're used to going to school, getting a job, and receiving a paycheck. You don't learn how to get rich. If you have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you know my rich dad refused to pay me. He said the payment was one of the most damaging things you can receive in your life. He says the moment you get a paycheck, you're an employee, and that's the mindset. So my rich dad never paid me. That drove my poor dad, a government employee, nuts. You have to pay people, you have to pay people. And rich dad wasn't saying that paying was bad. He was saying that he didn't want to be a slave to money. As an entrepreneur, if rich dad folded, I would just try another company. I don't need a check. I don't need anyone to take care of me. If my government doesn't like me, I move to another country because they need entrepreneurs there. So, the entrepreneur is not so much about the business. The entrepreneur is really the mindset, the skill sets, and a different set of rules. You see, I don't operate a small business. It doesn't operate within the same rules as big business. The entrepreneur is a first thought, a set of skills and rules. And depending on whether you're an employee or a small business owner, the rules are different, the mindsets are different, and the skill sets are different. If you could say one thing to someone who's never been an entrepreneur and is thinking about taking the leap of faith to become an entrepreneur, what would you say to them? Well, I'll tell you the same thing that happened to me. I still vividly remember my last check. It was one of the worst and best days of my life. I was in Puerto Rico, working for Xerox, and my boss gave me my last, not a check, but a bonus check. I think it was about $30,000 taxable, and that's the only problem with that. So I took this check and thought, holy mackerel. I was excited, but I was also worried. Then another guy came up to me. His name was John. John told me, "You'll be back." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you will fail." I looked at him and gave my explanation. Because that's what he did. He left Xerox, he failed, and he came back. I said, "Look, you failed and you came back, but I will fail and I'm never going back." And that's the attitude. Do you know what I mean? Yes. If you say, "Well, if I fail, I'll go back to mommy and daddy," then that's what you're going to do. So if you fail, that's when I became an entrepreneur. I didn't have money for years. Yeah, I didn't have a paycheck, but that's what my rich dad made me do. He says, when you don't have a paycheck, you get hungry, and it's a test of your character. Will you become dishonest, or will you become a better human being? It's really the benefit of being an entrepreneur that you find out who you are when you have nothing. So you always have to look at the big picture. A lot of people look, well, what's going to happen to me? When you look at the big picture, you will also know that when something bad happens, something good will happen. But you have to prepare for whatever comes. If you think the next 20 years will be like the last 20 years, you are mistaken. You know, when you and I go to the supermarket and buy a carton of milk, we always check the expiration date. But most people don't check the expiration date in their brain. I just refinanced $300 million. I went from 5% to 2.5% interest monthly, more money coming in. So, while some financial experts are saying to get out of debt, I'm saying that you learn how to use debt. See, when I got back from serving in Vietnam in January of 1973, the first thing my rich dad told me was, go to school to learn how to invest in real estate. It wasn't real estate. It was how to use debt and taxes. Debt and taxes make the rich richer. Debt and taxes make the poor and the middle class poor. So all the rich guys who are doctors and lawyers or, those guys, they're being creamed. And they don't know why the doctors are being creamed? Oh yeah, they're making more money, but their take-home is less. My doctor just yelled at me. He's happy. He says, "Oh, guess what? I finally made $1 million." And I said, "Yeah, that's just 3 weeks ago." And I said, "Yeah, well, how much do you pay in tax?" He says, $750,000 in taxes. So his net was about $400,000. That's not bad. But when I make $1 million, I keep $1 million. And the reason is because I don't do it by working for money. See, if you work for money, that's why Rich Dad is poor. What we do in the country is make real estate. I don't invest in the stock market. The reason is that as an entrepreneur, I have more control over my income and how much I pay in taxes. And because I'm an entrepreneur as well as a real estate investor, I pay zero tax. Every time I make, let's say, $1 million as an entrepreneur, I immediately invested in real estate, and I have a leverage of 4 to 1. So I put $1 million in real estate, and I get $4 million from the bank. This is why I love banks, but the banks are screwing everybody you know. Terrible, but it's good for me. I thought you said when you're pressed, it's good for you, but when you're pressed, it's bad for people who work for money. Because when you crush the savers, you get creamed, and the people who work for money become a brawl. When debtors are oppressed, they get rich. You see, debt and taxes make the rich richer, and debt and taxes make the middle class and the poor poorer. When we have outdated ideas, we get outdated results. So, what's going on for most people? The idea of going to school, getting a job, working hard, saving money, getting out of debt, buying your home because it's an asset, and investing for the long term is obsolete. The world has changed. The world changed in 1971 when President Nixon took us off the gold standard and money became debt. What if we get rid of school? Then what would happen? Would it be better if we had no education system at all? No, I'm saying that education was more important before. It's just outdated. You know, there's Moore's Law, which defines information doubling every 18 months. In other words, everything is out of date in 18 months. So, this is a recent phenomenon. When you get out of school, you're already out of date. And that's why I'm an old boy, you know. I meet my friends. I went to Harvard. Yes, I went to Harvard. I said, yeah, how long ago was that? 50 years ago? Today, banks are charging you to save money. In other words, banks don't want your money because they've printed too much of it. And that's why there are bubble stocks and real estate bubbles and all that. People are throwing money away because, like I said here, savers are losers and money is waste. And yet people are like, well, I want a high-paying job. Well, that's an outdated idea. Getting out of debt is an outdated idea. You must learn how to get into debt, how to use debt to get rich. And they will never teach you about taxes. The reason the 1% are here and the 99% are going this way is that when you print money, two things happen: inflation and taxes. I'm crushing them. Any entrepreneur who thinks, I'm just going to make money and start a business and make a lot of money, because that's what we're talking about, they really smell the roses. That's not what most real entrepreneurs are doing. There are 28 million small business owners in America who are entrepreneurs. So, because people don't really understand what being an entrepreneur is, most people are self-employed, but they are not really self-employed. Taxes are higher for everyone. Yes, it is also called the entrepreneurial spirit. Are we really talking about that? There is no such thing as a bad economy. Externally, you and I, we all have an external economy. But we also have an internal economy, and willpower changes our domestic economy. So, for me, I can see the good, I can see the bad. I really don't give a damn because I'll be rich anyway. But a poor person with a poor personal economy, all they will see is a bad economy because they don't know how to make money in any economy. And a middle-class person has a middle-class economy. They want a nice house, a steady check, a job, and a car. So, when you take those jobs away from them, that's a disaster. Well, since an entrepreneur doesn't have a job anyway, it's no big deal. So, all I tell people is what Buckminster Fuller taught me. There are always two sides, you know what I mean? You have to use the plural, at least two. So if you think the economy is bad, it's because your economy is bad. If you think stability and employment are important, then you're going to see a jobless economy. Your economy versus the foreign economy, where you control versus where you can't control. I can control. Yes, it's called an internal focus versus an external focus. So the real entrepreneur has an internal focus. But if they fall down, they say, oh, that's good because I'll go higher. You know, the average person will fall down and say, "Oh, I'll take some Prozac," or somebody makes mistakes. All mistakes don't matter. Well, mistakes matter. It means you didn't know something. But a true entrepreneur, whether they fall down or they can always go up. They can stay up and go higher. No matter what happens to them, they become stronger and better, smarter and happier. But a person with a weak internal mentality is so afraid of what happens, it generally happens. Like, people who are afraid of losing their jobs, they generally lose their jobs. Do you understand what I mean? Yes, without a doubt. So, everything comes through you. Yes, so the entrepreneur's first job is control here, not out there. The moment you get a paycheck, you are an employee. You have to be stronger than that. It is about internal control. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content.